Hello, my name is Matt, and I wanted to introduce you to a board game I created. It is called Henge. I call it that, named it after Stonehenge, because during gameplay you put these tiles in the board and they kind of stick out of the ground, reminiscent of Stonehenge. So that's why I called it that. Now, if you've ever played a game called Corridor, the game plays a little like Corridor, but to me there's enough differences that I think a lot of key differences that not only make it unique, I think it makes it a little more fun to play than Corridor. So I'm going to go ahead and do sort of a dummy game, left hand versus right hand. Just kind of keep in mind that it's one brain, two strategies. So basically the board is 47 squares, 7 by 7, and you have 12 tiles for each player, dual colored tiles. You have 3 completely brown tiles, and then each player has their own token. And basically the object of the game is to get to your opponent's starting point first. So each player starts on opposite corners, and you just move until you are the first person to get to your opponent's starting point first. And whether you go around the edge or you go through the middle, it is 12 moves regardless, 12 tiles. So a typical move is either jump a square or place a tile, which these tiles can be used to either block someone, cut off a passage behind you so you can't be pushed a certain direction. Really kind of several different reasons you may want to play a tile. So now one thing you can never do is play tiles that will completely sever a person from the end. I'll do it on this side. You may be able to see it better. So brown is not allowed to play tiles like this because now white can never get to that side. Of course, brown would be cut off too. So if brown was inside, he still couldn't build it behind him in order to keep tan away. The only time you can ever create a border that completely severs somebody from the end is if somebody sits there long enough and a one-man cell is built around them. That is the one exception, and if this ever happens, he loses instantly. But if you sit there and you allow it to happen, you kind of deserve to lose. Now, the only time that one of the times you have to look out for that is at the very beginning of the game. So say like brown plays a tile here. Well, if tan doesn't move right away, brown can play a second tile. And then he's trapped. So at the very beginning is one time where it may happen quicker than you think. So if you have one tile put there, you have to move instantly, or you are in danger of automatically losing the game. So I'm going to measure out my tiles real quick, make sure I got 12 and 12. All right. And now I'm just going to go ahead and play a typical game. All right. I had to step away, so I'm going to start the recording again, and I'm just going to go through what maybe a typical gameplay may be. As I might have mentioned before, just remember that it's one brain coming up with both strategies. I'm going to try to play a typical game the way it would play out, and for the sake of keeping it interesting, I may play at a faster rate than somebody else may play. Typical gameplay is about 10 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I'm hoping to go a lot quicker than that, but also come up with maybe what a real gameplay may look like. So brown goes first, so I'm going to have him move. And, tan can either play a tile or he can take a move. So if brown really wants tan to come off that first spot, he'll play a piece trapping him almost in. So tan better move or he's done for straight from the beginning. And remember, tan side up. I'm also hoping that I didn't switch. I know that I switched hands. My right hand was moving tan at first, now it's moving brown. I hope that, I'm going to go back to that, because I hope somebody didn't jump out of turn. I know that I just went back to it. All right, so it's Stan's turn next. Tip him over, so I remember that. So at this point, what we have is what I call an impasse. It's where two players are on side-by-side squares, and they can't really go anywhere until one of them moves. Now, or I also call it a confrontation. It doesn't have to take place in an area where only one person can pass through at a time. Confrontation can happen anywhere. It can happen here, even when somebody can clearly move around the other person. Confrontation is when two people are on side-by-side squares. Because really, what a confrontation is one person saying, hey, you're on the square I want, I can't go anywhere until you move. Even though I can go around you. The fastest way to where I want to go is through the square you are. That's a confrontation. When that happens, that is when the brown tiles come in. Playing a brown tile is basically saying, you're on the square I want, and this is my passive-aggressive way of telling you, get off my tile. The only time you can play a brown tile is when you're on side-by-side squares and you have exhausted all of your own personal tiles. If you come to this point and you still have personal tiles left, you have to continue playing personal tiles. You can't move beyond and start playing these without playing all your personal tiles first. So tan, sorry about that, tan is going to play a brown tile, and again, he can't play it where he's blocking off passage. But he's going to choose to play it back here. It's not blocking off passage, but you'll find out why he's placing it back here in a minute. Now, brown also wants to play a tile, because brown is saying, you're on my spot. Now, occasionally, quite often, one person is going to get to this point first, while the other player still has personal tiles. Now, the other player, even though tan can play a brown tile, if brown still had a tan tile left, brown would have to play his tan tile before he could play a brown one. However, in this scenario, brown has can also play a brown tile. So he's going to do so as well. Brown is going to play it there. Tan is going to place the last brown tile. Tan is going to choose to place it here. Here. And now it goes into switch mode, or shift mode is what I like to call it. Shift mode. Forget I said switch. Brown will be the first person to take a move in shift mode. And what shift mode is any tile that is tan up is now movable. The whole maze can be reconstructed. The goal is still the same, get to your endpoint first. But now the maze gets reconstructed. And now your play becomes twofold. You lift a tile, place it anywhere except its original spot. So brown would not be allowed to lift this up and place it in the same spot. Not allowed. Also, at this point, you are allowed to lift one up and place it in a spot that creates a complete barrier because you have several movable. Now, you can't have a complete barrier of non-movable, but you can have a barrier where at least one tile is tan up. Anything that gets played that is brown up is not movable. So, and as I said, goal is still the same: get to your end point. And I think this portion of the game is where the real strategy comes in. Now, a typical game may play out that you never get to shift mode, but if players are good enough, I think shift mode is generally forced, not only to keep it interesting, but also if you do a tile count, somebody's always the loser, therefore they're going to want to force it into shift mode if you do like a square count. So Brown goes first. Brown is wanting to get here, so he's going to lift this, and he's going to want to block tan from getting here. So maybe he'll play it there, and he'll take a move. Now Brown likes that this is here. If this is kept here, he can go through here and he's got a real good chance of winning. Tan knows that. Tan knows that he's not allowed to do this, flip it as a barrier. So what Tan's going to do, Tan's strategy, is to lift it now, move it somewhere so that he can block it off later. And that's actually a good place to put it. And now Tan's going to take a move.
Brown is now want to get him. Well, let's see what Brown wants to do.
All right, so what happened is I think I got too into the game and I lost count as to whose move it is. But as you can see, what you are doing now is reconstructing the maze to try to push a person further away from their spot. A couple of really dangerous plays may be to trap a person behind you, because then they may lead you to the path to where they're pushing you further away, and they're automatically going to get to their spot first. So it may sometimes seem like, hey, he's trapped behind me. That's a great play, but it could be that they're leading you to their spot first. Another really sort of dangerous way to go, and I think this is where I was going, is if you hit a spot, somebody, and it's whoever, generally I think it is whoever went second during shift mode. If two people come to a point where say like he's coming up this way, he's coming up, he's 2 squares away from winning, and he moves, and all of these have already been played. Once all of these have been played, then it just goes into move mode. The only thing you can do is move. But say he moves into spot, and Brown's only 2 from winning. If Brown has to move, Brown has to move backwards. And that could be a very, very costly loss for him. There, tan just won in that scenario, where brown was really, really close. So that is also something to look out for. So sorry I kind of lost track, but I think that the video kind of gives a typical way of how the game gets played. So thank you for watching, and hopefully this game gets made and everybody gets the chance to play. Thank you very much.